How's it going, YouTube? My name is LVNinja7, your resident Mistweaver monk, and today we're going to be making a step-by-step raid healing guide for Mistweaver monk, and we will be laying out everything that you guys need to know to get started playing Mistweaver in raid at the highest level. Now, I say we because this playstyle actually does so much healing that I need to bring in some backup, so Sweggles, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hello everyone, my name is Sweggles. I'm a Mistweaver theory crafter and guide writer for Questably Epic. I've been given the opportunity of collaborating with Chris, or LVNinja7, on a video guide for beginner Mistweaver players. I hope you enjoy. Before we begin, it is important to note that we will be covering a melee-oriented playstyle for Mistweaver Monk and Raid. Although I highly recommend you give the playstyle a shot, we do understand if it isn't your cup of tea.
For those of you who don't know Sweggles, he is consistently at or near the top of the leaderboards for Mistweaver Monk and Raid, so I am so excited to have him on the channel. So I always like to start these guides with stat weights, so it goes without saying that intellect will be your first priority. You just want to shoot for eye level at first, but if you have the option between choosing your secondary stats, you always want to shoot for at least 30% haste. That is your first threshold that you want to cross, and then from there you can start working on your other stats. Your next stat in line is your critical strike. Get that as close to 30%, and then once you've got both of those stats at or above 30% or around 30%, from there you can go a little bit into versatility. Now, why we aren't going mastery is this playstyle doesn't play a lot around essence font. It doesn't play around essence font at all, actually. So the opportunity cost of mastery is just a little bit too high, so you really want to pump your other stats up as much as you can. Now, next up is your talents, and we'll start off with the Monk talent tree. The Monk talent tree offers a shocking amount of utility that is all very important to you. So this is the recommended build. I will have these builds down below in the description, but one thing to note is that we do take 3 defensives. This will help you survive a lot more mechanics because you heal more when you're not on the floor. But we also gain a lot of healing from this talent tree, mainly through your improved Vivify and Vivacious Vivification, but also from Save Them All and Summon Jade Serpent Statue. As you'll see with this playstyle, Summon Jade Serpent Statue and Improved Vivify will add a ton of healing to your raid. You also have access to 3 different raid buffs in your Monk talent tree. However, we only take the 2 most important ones. The one that we don't take is Wind Walking, which just gives increased movement speed, but the ones that we do take are Generous Pour, which gives 4% reduced damage from all AoE attacks to allies within 10 yards, and then also Close to Heart, which gives 8% increased healing taken to all allies within 10 yards. The Monk tree also offers you a lot of mobility, and that comes through improved roll and celerity. So that will give you 3 total charges of roll, and they will cool down quicker, as well as Transcendence Transfer, which not only gives you a personal TP, a get out of jail free card, but it can also give you a lot of mana back. Now, if you want to hear more about that interaction, I have a video on it down below in the description. Now, this talent tree is pretty set in stone. The only change that you could really make is if you did not need Ring of Peace for a fight, you could take something like Bounce Back or Resonant Fist, but that is only if you know for a fact that you will not need Ring of Peace for a certain fight. Now, as for the Mistweaver talent tree, there are a couple of different variations that you can take, namely being if you want to play with Sheilun's Gift and Shaohao's Lesson or not. However, there are a few core synergies that build the foundation of this build and make it as strong and powerful as it is. The first of those synergies is the backbone of this entire playstyle, and that is Sheilun with Gift of the Celestials and Invoker's Delight. This whole build is built around summoning Sheilun once every minute, and that is made possible by Gift of the Celestials, which brings that cooldown from 3 minutes down to 1 minute. And then you can use the haste buff that you get from Invoker's Delight to just pump out a lot of Enveloping Mist, get a lot more Renewing Mist from those, and then just pump a ton of healing. Having access to this much healing every minute sets you apart from all the other healers so much and is so powerful. This next synergy is what pushes this build over the edge. It's what allows our ramps to last longer and be stronger, and that is Rapid Diffusion with Rising Mist. Rapid Diffusion says that every Rising Sun Kick and Enveloping Mist will apply a Renewing Mist for 6 seconds to an ally within 40 yards. So this is what allows us to be a fountain of Renewing Mists while we're spamming Enveloping Mist during our Sheilun windows. Rising Mist is absolutely the most busted ability for this build. Now, it says Rising Sun Kick heals all allies for a small amount if they have one of your hots on them. However, it can extend those hots by 4 seconds every time that you Rising Sun Kick, up to doubling their duration. Rising Mist alone is why we always want to be in melee. That way we always have access to Rising Sun Kick because it is so powerful. Not only does it extend the hots coming into our ramp, but it extends the hots that we lay out during our ramp, and it extends the hots that our Rising Sun Kicks place themselves. All of this combines to just make our ramps more explosive, have more targets that we're healing, and last longer. The third synergy at the core is Clouded Focus and Invigorating Mist. Now, Invigorating Mist is what allows your Vivifies to cleave on all the targets that also have Renewing Mist on them. And Clouded Focus, as long as we're channeling our Soothing Mist, it will just ramp up healing. In fact, Sweggles, why don't you tell us a bit more about it?
Because the majority of our healing comes through Vivify, we want to be playing talents that allow for us to easily increase the throughput that it is capable of. Clouded Focus is the easiest way of consistently buffing our Vivify to ensure that it is capable of doing such numbers. Whenever you cast Vivify or Enveloping Mist through Soothing Mist, you will gain a stack of Clouded Focus, which increases the healing and reduces the cost of your next Vivify and Enveloping Mist by 20% respectively. This effect stacks up to 3 times. It is good to note that the healing amplification is always 1 stack ahead of what it shows. This means that your first cast of either Vivify or Enveloping Mist will be buffed by 20% healing. This does not include the mana reduction, however. This is important to note because being 20% ahead on the healing always means that it's a good time to press Vivify. Using Soothing Mist at times can be tricky when you're having to deal with mechanics. Do your best to think ahead with what mechanics might be incoming, and if you can, try to position yourself in a way that you could plant and channel Soothing Mist without taking avoidable damage. You should never die to avoidable damage because you were casting Soothing Mist. Always prioritize the living in Raid. I also mentioned that our tier set is something that will have a major impact on our HPS in Raid. The 4-set proc, Soulfang Infusion, is not something that you have to track necessarily, but it is important to note that both Thunder Focus Tea and Mana Tea proc the 4-set manually. This allows you to use either ability during your Vivify spam windows to net even more HPS, as you will be doing 40% more healing with both Vivify and Renewing Mist. If you are able to, try your best to capitalize on this buff by spamming Vivify following Thunder Focus Tea or Mana Tea usages.
This talent tree also has a lot of other very important abilities that add a lot of healing. Now, the 2 variations that we're going to show today are when you have Unison and Focus Thunder, or if you want to run Sheilun's Gift. Now, I'll go ahead and talk about Sheilun's Gift, and I'll leave the hard one up to Sweggles. However, Sheilun's Gift is a very powerful ability. It only heals 3 people, but it can heal a burst heal. How it works is it stacks up over time as long as you're in combat, and then you can cash in those stacks for a bigger heal. However, where it gets very strong in Raid is when you apply Shao's Lesson, which for every stack that you consume, you basically get one of these 4 very impactful buffs for a longer duration, depending on how many stacks you cash in. Now, I'm sure you can imagine that coming into your ramp with one of these passives applied is extremely impactful. However, it does require a bit more setup. So if you want to take Shao's Lesson and Sheilun's Gift, just make sure that you're pressing Sheilun's Gift before you ramp so you have these buffs beforehand. Next up is Revival. Now, this is our traditional major cooldown. It's an excellent raid-wide heal that heals everyone for a nice big chunk, and it also can Mass Dispel. Now, the Mass Dispel can be important on some fights like Sarkareth, where you do need to Mass Dispel a certain dot. However, you can also opt to take Restoral if that Mass Dispel would hurt you, like on fights like Experiments, where you might need to use it for the healing, but not need the Mass Dispel, or it might mess your raid up. You can even get this 3-minute cooldown down to even 2 minutes by utilizing Uplifted Spirits. Now, as long as you're pressing Vivify often and Rising Sun Kick as often as possible, you'll be taking some time off of that cooldown, and if you get lusted, if you get some sort of haste buff like in Sarkareth, you can really expose this and get that cooldown down extremely low. This just further shows how important Rising Sun Kicking on cooldown can be, because it is your guaranteed way to take a second off of that cooldown. Unison is one of your keystone talents and can add a lot of passive healing throughout the raid, especially if you make sure and summon your Jade Serpent statue before the fight starts. Now, how it works is your Soothing Mist will heal an additional target, but it also kind of combos with your Summon Jade Serpent statue because it also causes it to heal an additional person. So if I heal this cat, then I'll also be healing his friend with Soothing Mist, but if I stop healing, my Jade Serpent statue also heals both of those targets. Mana Tea is such an amazing ability, especially at facilitating our ramps. Not only does it cut the cost of your casts in half, but it also procs your tier set. So you can even use this during your channel of Soothing Mist to give yourself that tier set bonus, but also make those Vivifies cost less mana, especially when you stack it on top of your Clouded Focus benefit. So if I am channeling Soothing Mist and I am spamming Vivifies and then I press Mana Tea, I now have that tier set bonus and those Vivifies will be boosted even further, as well as giving me that mana reduction. Thunder Focus Tea is also an excellent ability that we have a ton of synergy built around. Now, this will boost your next ability. It can either boost an Enveloping Mist, Renewing Mist, Vivify, Rising Sunkick, or your Essence Font. However, we always want to be using this on Renewing Mist because it not only extends that duration, which can make it last into the next ramp, but it also will give us a haste buff with Secret Infusion, allowing us to get more Vivifies off per Soothing Mist, allowing us to get more Rising Sun Kicks off, our Hots to tick more. Haste is just obviously our best stat, and the Secret Infusion buff is the reason why we always want to be doing Renewing Mists. It's also important to note that Thunder Focus Tea has a 30-second cooldown, so you want to press this not only right before your ramp, but right once it comes off cooldown. That way you can have it for your next ramp, since it splits this Yu'lon cooldown in half.
An alternative talent setup to Sheilun's Gift and Shaohao's Lessons is Unison and Focus Thunder. These two talents allow for more passive HPS through Soothing Mist and higher Renewing Mist counts. For fights with consistent damage patterns, such as Magma Racks, you can play around with this build. However, both Focus Thunder and Sheilun's Gift are totally viable in every fight and perform within 5% of each other. It is important to note that if you're playing Focus Thunder, you will still be wanting to buff Renewing Mist with your Thunder Focus Tea 100% of the time. The second charge of Thunder Focus Tea could be used on either Rising Sunkick or the second charge of Renewing Mist if you have it available. For an entry level, I recommend using Renewing Mist and Rising Sunkick with the two buffs to make sure that you don't lose any Renewing Mist uptime.
Now, for the rest of this guide, we're going to be talking about the rotations and how to actually play this build. But before we do that, it is very important to teach you guys one thing if you don't know it already. And that is how to look at logs, because since we are such a ramping playstyle, it's very vital when we actually press that Yu'lon cooldown to make sure that we're able to capitalize on the incoming damage and heal the raid properly. So how we look at logs and assess when we should actually be pressing that Yu'lon cooldown is we come here to warcraftlogs.com, we click on raids, and then we click on whatever fight we're looking to fight. So if I'm about to be pulling Rashok, for example, I'm going to click on Rashok, pull up his stats, which I already have it pulled up. We want to change this from looking at damage to healing. And then we also want to change from all healers to just Mistweaver monks. That way we can see what some of the top loggers are doing. Now, in other healers' cases, they might not advise you to do this. They might advise you to just feel it out for yourself with your certain raid group. However, Mistweavers are so reliant on when the actual damage happens that you can look at some of the top parses and see when they are applying their cooldowns and do as such. So let's go ahead and click on Sweggles. I don't think he knows that I'm doing this, but we're clicking on Sweggles and we're going to see when he presses his Yu'lon ramp. So we're going to click on his actual pool. We're going to click on his name. And then one thing that I like to do is click on Invoke Yu'lon the Jade Serpent. And this will show when his healing from Yu'lon comes out. So you can see here at about 14 seconds into the Rashok fight, he presses his Yu'lon and starts his ramp then. You can also see then at about a minute and 13, he presses his Yu'lon again, or about minute and 14, so right once it comes off cooldown. And then here you can see there's a long pause. There's about 9 seconds that he delays it to get it off. So that is smart for you to know that you should delay your third ramp for about 9 seconds, 9 to 10 seconds. And then here he goes right again, right once it comes off cooldown, but then he delays it further for about 7 more seconds. So it's very important to know when the best, most optimal times are to press your Yu'lon, because you don't want to be ramping into 0 damage. It's important to start your ramp at about 6 seconds before the damage event actually occurs. This will give you plenty of time to apply your buffs, summon Sheilun, get a couple of enveloping mist casts out, and then you can start your big healing right as soon as that damage comes out. However, if you're running Sheilun's gift, you either want to cast this well before those 6 seconds or at about 8 seconds before the damage comes out so that you can apply that Shao's lesson buff coming into your ramp. Now, as for the ramp itself, it's important that we have Thunder Focus Tea ready, and then ideally we have both of our Renewing Mist charges coming off cooldown, but it's okay if we have used one Renewing Mist charge and only have the one available, but it is vital that we at least have one Renewing Mist charge coming into our ramp. So how we're going to start our ramp is ideally we come into this with a couple of hots out already from our normal rotation. We want to have Rising Sun Kick available, that way we can extend the hots coming into our ramp, but then we want at least one Renewing Mist charge. Ideally we have both Renewing Mist charges available, but if you only have one, that's okay. As long as you at least have the one, it is very important. So to start your ramp, you are going to Rising Sun Kick. This will give us a Rising Mist proc and extend all of those hots so that hopefully some of them stick around during our actual ramp. So we're going to start the ramp with the Rising Sun Kick. Now, if you have both Renewing Mist charges here, you then want to just press one of them, apply it to someone. However, it's okay if you just have the one, like I said. After you've applied that first one, or if you just have the one available, let me let this recharge reset. So after we apply that first one, or if you just have that one available, after you press that first one, you're then going to Thunder Focus Tea the second one. This will give us that Secret Infusion haste buff, while also giving us a longer lasting hot that will last very long after our ramp. After we do that brief little setup, so Rising Sun Kick into Renewing Mist, into Thunder Focus Teeing your next Renewing Mist, then we can actually start the Sheilun ramp. So you can actually summon Sheilun while you're casting a spell. So you want to summon Sheilun as you're applying that Thunder Focus Teed Renewing Mist. So let's do that one more time. We're going to Rising Sun Kick, Renewing Mist, Thunder Focus Tea, Renewing Mist, and summon Sheilun at the same time, and then we will do our ramp. Now for the ramp, ideally you want to get 4 Enveloping Mists off, at least 4. So let's go ahead and do it. So Rising Sun Kick, Renewing Mist, Thunder Focus Tea, Renewing Mist, summon Sheilun, and then we start our ramp 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we Rising Sun Kick, and then we're ready to blast. Now, obviously, I'm just casting the Enveloping Mist on myself because obviously I'm not in a raid right now. However, ideally, you want to spread these out so that you can get those Enveloping Breaths out on the whole entire raid. Now, the reason why we start 6 seconds before the damage actually happens is because ideally we get all of those Enveloping Mist casts off. We get that entire setup off and the entire ramp off so that when we do that final Rising Sun Kick and then pick a target to Soothing Mist, that's when the damage comes out. And while we Soothing Mist and spam Vivifies into a single target, we're getting so much healing. We're blasting the Vivify cleaving. We're healing a ton. That is the peak of our ramp, and that is exactly when you want the damage to happen.
Your goal with your Sheilun window is to create as many Enveloping Breaths and Renewing Mists that you can through your Enveloping Mist cast. You always want to get a minimum of 4 Enveloping Mist casts off, and it is vital that you're casting Rising Sun Kick whenever it is off cooldown. This sometimes means that you'll have to cast it during your Enveloping Mist spam. This is okay to do so long as you haven't casted more than 3 Enveloping Mists already. If you have, then save your Rising Sun Kick until you finish your 4th or 5th cast of Enveloping Mist.
So once again, let's walk through it one last time. So you're going to Rising Sun Kick, you're going to Renewing Mist, you're going to Thunder Focus Tea or Renewing Mist, and then summon Sheilun. You're going to cast at least 4 Enveloping Mists, and then you're going to Rising Sun Kick again, then you're going to pick a target to Soothing Mist and spam your Vivifies into them. Now, ideally, while you're Soothing Misting there, once you're capitalizing on all those Renewing Mists that you applied, you're going to use Mana Tea to give yourself to reproc your tier set. But also, it's important to note that even at any point during your ramp, if Rising Sun Kick comes off cooldown, you press it. So even if I'm applying my Enveloping Mist, or I am in the middle of channeling Soothing Mist, you really especially want to press that button because it is your highest HPS increase, and you have to think about it, although you're not at that moment capitalizing with Vivifies, you're extending your hots to extend your ramp to then later further capitalize on them. Now, as for doing the healing outside of our ramp, this is also very important because you don't just want to be doing healing during your ramp. This rotation has a couple of rules that can help you guys build your foundation for your rotation. Rule number 1 is obviously Rising Sun Kick on cooldown. Take it away, Sweggles.
As someone who has coached many players, Rising Sun Kick is the most common thing that new Mistweaver monks struggle on. It is the most important spell in our kit, and it is vital that you are pressing it as often as you can. I recommend getting a Weakaura for it, and putting it on a convenient keybind so that it can easily be pressed. You want to aim for a minimum of 6 casts per minute on Rising Sun Kick per fight. However, the higher this number is, the better, as it directly correlates to your HPS and your throughput overall.
Yes, so rule number 2 is you never ever want to sit at 2 renewing mist charges. You always want one at least recharging. Ideally, you can come into your Yulon ramps with both available, but you can usually, hopefully you can time it to where it comes right off cooldown as soon as you're starting your second ramp. The purpose of this is because this is the backbone of the entire playstyle, and this is how we do our healing, is we cleave off Vivifies, press Soothing Mist on targets, and we're capitalizing on Invigorating Mist during the downtime. Rule number 3 is that, like I said earlier, you want to Thunder Focus Tea as soon as it comes off cooldown. That way you have it up for every ramp. And you always want to use it on Renewing Mist unless, like Sweggles said earlier, you are running Focus Thunder. The next rule is that we want to Blackout Kick immediately after pressing Rising Sun Kick, since Blackout Kick does have a chance to reset the cooldown of a Rising Sun Kick. And like we've said, Rising Sun Kick is the most important spell that we have. So we Rising Sun Kick and then immediately after get into the habit of Blackout Kicking. And then from there, we can just continue on with our normal rotation. Unless it resets Rising Sun Kick, then we're going to press Rising Sun Kick again. So what do we cast in the downtime? What are our filler spells? Well, we actually have 2 completely different filler spells, and which one you choose to cast is determined by how many Renewing Mist you have out at a time. So I highly recommend downloading the Renewing Mist tracker down in the description below, because it can help you determine which filler spell to cast. Now, if you have 5 or more Renewing Mists out, you're just going to pick a target and Soothing Mist and cast Vivifies. That is your filler. That's how you get very good healing, and can also, if you have Revival off cooldown, can help you reset that cooldown if your Vivifies crit. If you have 4 or less Renewing Mists on cooldown, if you have exactly 4, it's still okay to channel a Soothing Mist target. However, what I like to do is if I have 4 or less, we Tiger Palm. This is when we actually press Tiger Palm. You'll notice it is very low on the totem pole. We press it a lot less often than you're probably used to pressing with the Ancient Teachings build. However, like I said, if you have 4 or less Renewing Mists, you press Tiger Palm until your Rising Sun Kick comes off cooldown, and then we can Rising Sun Kick, and then we'll have an extra stack of our Blackout Kick to hopefully get that reset. However, this is a lot lower priority, like I said, than it used to be. And then the final rule is get out of the habit of pressing Essence Font as a filler. This is something that I just broke myself out of doing. But guys, Essence Font does not get as much value as it used to. The hot is just not competitive with the amount of healing that our Vivify Cleaves can do. And then also we're not stacking Mastery, so we just don't get a lot of benefit out of pressing this button. So in turn, it just becomes a big mana sink. And it's almost always just more worth it with this build to press Vivify or to Soothing Mist and then press Vivify. So the rotation outside of your Yulon ramps should look a bit something like this. Rising Sun Kick, Renewing Mist, Blackout Kick, and then either Soothing Misting a target or Tiger Palming, depending on how many Renewing Mists you have. So Rising Sun Kick, Renewing Mist because we have a charge, Blackout Kick, we don't get the reset, so we're going to pick a target and heal, or press Tiger Palm or that second charge of Renewing Mist, depending on when our ramp is coming up. Also depending on how many Renewing Mists we have out. Once again, we're gonna Rising Sun Kick first, Renewing Mist second. We'll just go ahead and apply the second charge. Blackout Kick is off cooldown, and since we don't have that many targets out, we're just gonna Tiger Palm until we get that many. So now that we have that many Renewing Mists out, we are going to spam Soothing Mist and get all that cleave healing. Look, those dummies getting fully healed. And that is the simple rotation. So always, I can't stress it enough, always press Rising Sun Kick on cooldown. Now, this build can take you all the way to the top of the healing meters, up there with Sweggles even. However, it can fall prey to some bad RNG. So Sweggles, why don't you tell us a bit about that RNG, how it happens, and how to get around it?
Mistweaver Monk is designed so that our HPS floor is already high enough to complete all the content in the game. However, we do have an element of RNG to our kit that makes us do more than we expect at times. Due to this random nature of Rising Sun Kick resets and Dancing Mist procs, it can feel frustrating at times when you're consistently getting bad RNG. It is important to note that if you're playing the rotation correctly, you will hover around 5 to 7 Renewing Mists consistently. This means that it will always be a good time for you to cast Vivify and capitalize on your renewing mists, so make sure you're casting Vivify as often as possible. The last thing you want is to end a fight at full mana because you weren't capitalizing on your renewing mists.
Alright, so you should now be well versed in this raid healing playstyle for Mistweaver monks. Thank you so much, Sweggles, for coming in to help out with this guide.
Thanks for having me on, Chris. I appreciate the opportunity to teach Mistweaver to an even bigger audience. If you enjoy this content, let us know in the comments and make sure to subscribe to see even more. If you want to see my content, make sure you check out the description for links to my Twitch and my guide on Questionably Epic, which will be updated for the upcoming patch of 10.1.7.
Yes, definitely check those out because they are excellent resources, but also I'm going to be linking Sweggles' YouTube channel because I'll admit, I even watch his videos sometime to watch how he kills bosses the optimal way so that I can do better myself. So definitely check that out, as well as link to his Metafy where he offers coaching if you want a little extra boost to your healing and confidence in your Mistweaver gameplay. But I also will leave a link to my Discord down below, but also the Peak of Serenity Discord. Both of these are great ways to ask questions to the community. Obviously, mine is more personalized. However, the Peak of Serenity has people like Sweggles in it who can answer a lot more in-depth questions and have probably play-tested anything that you can imagine. So definitely make sure and join both of those Discords and use them as a resource in your journey to learning or just improving as Mistweaver Monk. Guys, that's going to do it for this video. Make sure and check out all those links down below. There's going to be a lot of them, but they are all there to help you guys. And if you liked this guide, make sure and like the video because it shows me and Sweggles that you like us working together. I also really enjoyed this format, so let me know what you guys think of it down below in the comment section. I'm excited to see all of that and more in the comment section. But guys, thank you once again for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe on your way out because we are approaching 3,000 and it would be amazing if we can get there before the year ends. Once again, thank you so much, Sweggles, for coming onto the channel, and thank you guys for clicking on this video and for all of the support lately. Guys, that's gonna do it for this one. I will see you guys in the next video. Take care.